Welcome to the Ripple Podcast,
The podcast where we tell you stories about strange and unusual events and the ripples they create.
aka the story after the story.
I'm Rosa.
And I'm Angela.
And this is the Ripple Podcast.
Get Ripple, the bright new drink that ring-a-ding flavor. Ripple.
And we're going.
Hello.
Hi there.
Welcome back.
It's been a while.
It's been a long time. But this might be the first one ever, so it might be brand new.
So welcome
Welcome to the Ripple Podcast.
or welcome back,
Sure.
depending on how many of these we release.
Actually release.
Because this is technically number
I don't know.
9?
Really? That many? No, like 7. I don't know.
More than 5.
Yeah, definitely. And we actually have microphones now, so it might actually be worth listening to audio quality-wise. Content quality-wise, I don't know.
That's always a question.
Yeah.
If we're doing the microphones right, though, hopefully
Hopefully it doesn't sound worse than it did before.
I'm looking at the little squiggles, and they are pretty little.
Yeah, that's true. Should we listen?
I don't know.
Dead air.
Let's just keep going.
Okay, you're first this week.
Are you sure? You know? You remember?
I do remember.
Whoa. You know how many weeks it's been since we've gotten together?
A lot.
Like,
Oops.
oops, silence. Okay, so this week we're talking about the theme of hypnosis.
Yes.
And finding just an interesting true crime story that has to do with hypnosis. Was it just hypnosis, or was it like, I can't even remember what
It
our
was just
theme.
hypnosis. Yeah, we didn't have
That
like,
was our broad.
it could be hypnosis that caused a crime. It could be hypnosis that solved a crime. It could be any other realm of hypnotizing people and crimes happening.
Okay, hypnosis.
Yep.
All right, I have a million sources, and I'm going to list them right now.
Oh, I
so
have 2.
skip forward for a good 30 seconds if you don't want to hear all of these. I have cbsnews.com, jimfishertruecrime.blogspot.com. I have washingtonpost.com. I have psmag.com. I have Reddit, and I have YouTube.
Those are reliable ones.
You know, those are I went straight to the sources in those last 2.
All right.
So in 2001, Dr. George Kenney became the principal of North Point High School. He was a popular high school principal from North Point, Florida, and he was also an unlicensed hypnotist who had learned how to hypnotize from the Omni Hypnosis Training Center in DeLand, Florida. Now, I say DeLand, Florida is where he learned. I read on a couple sources that he learned from watching videos online, so like an online school.
Okay.
So I don't know if this Omni Hypnosis Training Center was an actual facility where they went in and had face-to-face teaching, or if it was strictly an online school.
I could see a lot of it being online because I can't imagine that there's that many people who are interested in getting certified in hypnosis for them to have a central location.
Center?
Yeah. Or maybe like a hybrid thing.
I could see like a community center type setup.
Sure.
You know, once a month or classes or something. But
Okay.
I don't know. So regardless, it was Omni Hypnosis Training Center. So he learned how to hypnotize to help his students deal with school-related anxiety and other emotional problems. So he was a super popular principal. The kids really liked him. The parents really liked him. And his main purpose to learn how to hypnotize was strictly to help his students. So over a 5-year period, he was said to have hypnotized at least 75 students and staff members, even though he was told 3 times to stop from the school board members. So the reason he was told to stop was because he didn't technically have a license to hypnotize. You need a medical related license.
Okay. So Right. So if you're doing it for like a therapeutic thing, you need to be licensed. And if you're just doing it for party tricks, it's like whatever.
It's different. And he could actually even like go into the high school psychology class and show, you know, hey, I'm going to hypnotize this student and show it there. But he couldn't do like a one-on-one therapy sessions.
Well, yeah, because he's not an actual therapist.
Correct. But that's what he was doing.
Okay.
So he was hypnotizing these students, these staff members, and in the course of a few months, 3 of those students that Kenny had hypnotized ended up dead. So the first student that died was Marcus Freeman. He was a football player and 2-time BMX cycling champion.
Ooh.
He, George Kenny, the principal, was teaching Marcus how to, quote, self-hypnotize. So this was supposed to help him deal with pain during football games, as well as being able to increase his on-field concentration. Okay. So Marcus actually had a session with Kenny the day of his death. On March 15th, 2011, Marcus crashed his car as he was driving home from a dentist appointment. And his girlfriend, who was also in the car at the time of the crash, said that he just all of a sudden got this strange look on his face right before the crash happened.
So, but how do they know it had anything to do with hypnosis?
They don't, and they didn't even question it yet. Okay. So this is just a horrible tragedy that had happened, and this amazing athlete died in a car crash.
All right. But did he rear end somebody? Did he just decide to like veer off the side of the...
He veered off the interstate is what they said.
And he's just driving along, and then all of a sudden he's just...
crashed.
Takes a hard right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So then less than a month later, this is now April of 2011, Wesley McKinley, who was 16, was also a gifted guitar player. They would be found hanging from a tree near his home. He had been seen by Kenny 3 times, including once the day before his death.
That's pretty close.
So Wesley was being hypnotized by Kenny to help with his nerves. He was applying to Juilliard, that really fancy school for dance and art and music.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he just wanted help to improve his performance.
So that's interesting because somebody typically, I mean, not always, but typically if they're planning for their future, suicide isn't on the top of their list. But also they are teenagers, so things can change pretty drastically in a short amount of time. So
like I said, that he had been hypnotized shortly before his death, and actually the day that he died, his friend said that he was acting really strange, and one of his friends even said, hey, punch me in the face. As they were
punch him in the face?
Yeah, like, hey, if I came up to you and said, hey, Angela, punch me in the face.
I mean, I wouldn't really question you.
Well, I know you would go for it. That would be your opening right there. But apparently that was very out of character. So he was just kind of acting a little odd, a little strange.
Do they know if that was before or after the therapy session?
The day that he died.
Okay,
he said that. He was acting strange that day.
And the therapy was the day before?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Then 3 weeks later, on May 4th, 2011, a third student would die. This is Brittany, and her parents found her hanging in her bedroom closet. Oof. She was just 17, and she was another very driven student. She would typically give up her weekends with her friends to study, and she had been seeing Kenny about test anxiety and just getting better tips on how to perform better on tests, and her goal was to get into a really good college. She had hoped his hypnosis would help her, and she had been hypnotized in February of 2011. I don't have the exact date of her last one, but if she was hypnotized in February, March, April, May, she passed away 3 months later.
Okay, so that is quite a bit of time. And do they know, was she still
seeing him?
Yeah.
The only date I have was that one time. So I don't know if
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if she was still like preparing for these exams, or if they're what.
It sure sounds like it. Sounds like her main focus was strictly school. Mm. So after these 3 deaths, Dr. George Kenney was put on a paid administrative leave pending the results of investigations by the school district and the local police. Obviously, like, this is kind of strange. 3 high school students within a matter of months have committed suicide, and like, that's not typical. So the Saratoga County School District supervisor had told Kenney to only perform student hypnosis in the psychology class, kind of like I was mentioning.
Right.
But that
like
obviously
as a demonstration, not
right.
providing one-on-one therapy when you're not a real therapist.
However, which I thought was very interesting, each student that he performed hypnosis on had received parental consent.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
so
good.
It wasn't like he was doing this in secret. The kids knew he was doing it. The parents knew he was doing it. Even the school board obviously knew he was doing it, even though they told him to stop.
And then I guess, I mean, I'm thinking about it a little bit more now, though. He could be just providing them with, like, here's a technique you can use to help focus. Here's a technique you can use to help relax. And not necessarily providing them with, like, counseling therapy. But at the same time, I would imagine if you were a principal, he would have had to have been like a certified counselor at one point too.
He's a doctor.
Oh, like what kind of doctor though?
Maybe a doctor. I thought a doctor of education just because he was a principal, but I guess you could be a doctor of anything.
Okay.
I shouldn't assume. Well,
yeah.
Anyways, so back in 2009, on a school trip to Orlando, the principal went on the school trip, and he kind of performed like a hypnosis show for all the kids in the hotel. And a quote from one of the students said, "I was in this trance. I was told I wouldn't be able to find my room because all the room numbers would be changed to Chinese."
Oh my God, that's horrifying.
So they're in this random hotel, and
so scary.
you're not going to find your room because you can't read them. They're all in Chinese. So the kid says, "I was lost for about 20 to 25 minutes walking around."
Wait, they just left him like that?
I don't know how long this show went on. I was seeing these Chinese letters, the weird lines and all, he said. And then another student said about the same hypnosis show in Orlando. He said he made a couple of the guys put lipstick on. Everyone thought it was funny because it was, teenagers putting lipstick on. So, I mean, which makes me think of the fair, which we always go and see that same lady perform at the fair every year. And she does the same routine.
And I am convinced she has people planted in the audience that come up when her show isn't going quite the way she wants it to, because I swear it's like the same people get pulled up from the audience every time.
I don't even think they're necessarily plants. I think they're just people that like to be laughed at or to be the center of attention, and so they fake it.
Yeah, I never really, until I started reading about all of the stuff for this research, I didn't even believe that, like, hypnotists, like, can do much unless you really, really, really want to be hypnotized.
Well, and I think that's part of it. I don't know if I'm too scared, because I've tried to be hypnotized.
I tried at the fair with that same lady. I went on stage and I tried to be hypnotized, and the very first thing that they do is they put you in, like, the sleep trance thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how
go to sleep.
Right. And they tap your shoulder.
And everyone falls over.
Freaking tapping your shoulder. They're pushing you down. So I got, like, pushed into this guy next to me. And
Be gone, demons.
I don't want to touch you. That was my first thing. Like, I don't want to just, like, lay on this stranger next to me. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going along with this. And then, of course, I get asked to go sit back down.
They tell you because you're not willing to take the orders. That's not the right term. But yeah. So obviously, whether these hypnotist shows, whether the kids were faking it or they were legitimately being hypnotized, it's hard to say. But then there were some families that were actually saying that these sessions with the principal helped. So from the Herald Tribune in 2011, a father of a senior at the time said that Kenny's hypnosis had helped his son relax when shooting free throws on the basketball court, as well as taking tests. And Kenny never charged for the sessions, and he had, I guess, a lot of sessions with him. And he says, we basically worked with him on a focused type of thing, on foul shooting and anxiety. He would sit with him and relax and say things like, see yourself making a free throw. It worked wonders, and his test scores have come up on the HCTs. So, I mean, that's one good thing right there that they're saying, you know, that became of these sessions. He also hypnotized a basketball player maybe 30 to 40 times to help him concentrate better on the basketball court.
I have a question.
Okay.
And this is completely inappropriate, but it's kind of creepy that this grown man wants to continuously hypnotize and put these teenagers in a trance. Was there ever any speculation that he was doing
inappropriate things? Never. No, and I mean, I read a lot of articles, and not once. And these, you know, after these kids died, there were some angry families.
Of course.
And that was never brought up.
Huh.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, I'd hope so. But I mean, that's another thing. Just doing research for this podcast, I came across a lot of people doing
things they shouldn't be doing.
Things to people who were put under hypnosis.
Yeah, it's definitely can be used inappropriately. It sounds like
too. I mean, if you were abused or molested or anything like that, that might contribute to being suicidal.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. I could see that. So back in 2012, after an investigation, Kenny was then charged with 2 misdemeanors. One of them was practicing therapeutic hypnosis without a license, which I 100% agree with that. He entered a plea of no contest as part of a deal that would have him serve 1 year of probation.
Okay.
And during his probation, he was not allowed to practice unlicensed hypnosis. Huh,
well,
what a concept, fair. Yeah.
And so something like that, they can't prove that he contributed to the suicide, but they can definitely prove that he was unlawfully practicing therapeutic hypnosis.
Without a license. Exactly.
Okay.
And he admits
fair.
to that. He does. He was actually allowed to retire from the school board with his full pension as well.
Okay.
Which I agree, I think, too, because he, you know, he earned that pension, I guess.
Maybe. That's kind
so,
of up for debate.
Yeah. About the time of his guilty plea, the 3 families of the deceased students, they each filed a wrongful death civil suit against the school board, alleging that the school officials had failed to do enough to stop Kenny from hypnotizing the students. So the reason that they sued the school board is because Kenny is actually protected under the a district law.
Yeah, I've heard of that before.
So they couldn't sue him as an individual.
Oh, that was creepy. I hate when we do that.
Twin talk. So the plaintiffs and the school board district agreed to a $600,000 court settlement split 3 ways. If the lawsuit had gone to trial, the plaintiffs would have had the trouble of proving without strong, tangible evidence a direct link between George Kenny's hypnosis and the death of their students. So they could prove that he was seeing their children without a license and practicing hypnosis on them, but they could not prove that he had any connection to their death. The district's lawyers hired a licensed hypnotherapist and psychotherapist named Dr. Elin Gamberg as an expert witness to testify that the family's claims were actually unfounded.
Oh.
So it was interesting. They kind of backed up what he was doing without actually saying those words. They were hiring people to protect them.
Mm-hmm. Did you find anywhere what the grounds of the expert witness was using? Like what sort of examples and evidence he had, like that, oh, this won't contribute to somebody?
He said, I actually have a quote down here. Let me pull it for you.
Oh, sorry.
No. It's fine. It's a good question. He says, I can go through some of the literature with you that says one of the hallmarks for putting yourself into a self-hypnosis is to enter a very relaxed state of attention and focus. And I think that would be extremely impossible while driving a car.
Interesting.
So, because even though, I mean, how many times have we driven home and you're like, oh my gosh, you blink and you're home. You don't remember stopping. Mm-hmm. You don't remember turning.
Because it's so automatic.
It's a form of hypnosis.
Really?
It is. It actually is. Because you've done that repetitive movement.
You have the muscle memory?
So many times. It is a form of a hypnosis. The families also said that they weren't suing because of the treatments. They were suing because the board was not protecting their students enough.
But they agreed to it. They had permission.
But they said that they didn't have all of the knowledge.
Well, that's not the school's fault necessarily.
Well, maybe the parents.
I mean, I'm sure you're super emotional. You lost your kid. That's the worst thing that could happen to anybody. But I don't know. I'm starting to agree with the school now. And initially, I thought that this guy was a creep.
It's very interesting. And like I said before, he never had anyone say anything bad about him doing inappropriate behavior. He went on overnight, week-long trips with these kids. And those are perfect chances for people to go, hey, Mr. Kenny did something not nice. So there's some really bad quotes from the parents that says, what I believe happened is my daughter went into her room that night and blinked her eyes, and she entered a calm and relaxed state that allowed her to go through what she went through. And that's from Brittany's mom. And it says, probably the worst loss that can happen to a parent is to lose a child, what you just said, especially needlessly, because you had someone who decided to perform medical services on kids without a license. And then one person said he altered the underdeveloped brains of teenagers. That's
the part that gets to me, because they're all teenagers and their brains are mush, and teenagers are stupid and irrational, and they
think that the littlest thing is the most
the end of the world.
And they said they all ended up dead because of it. Oof. There is something that I read about called almost like a domino effect, or like a copycat, with suicides in teenagers.
Did they know each other at the high school, or were they kind of in different cliques?
That's a really good question. I don't know. One was a football player, one was the guitar player, and then one girl was super studious. And they were in different grades as well. So probably not.
Interesting.
So some people say that he was committing crimes by engaging in this hypnosis. And they just want the school board to take responsibility for it. I guess the principal never did apologize.
Really?
Which maybe his lawyer told him not to.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
But you could still, in my mind, say, like, I'm so sorry for your loss. I don't know. Maybe
he was told not to say anything at all.
It's quite possible, because many, many people tried to call for interviews and he would never respond.
I don't blame him.
So after these really strong emotional statements, obviously their emotions are high, but it still cannot be technically proved that Kenny caused their death. So each family collected $200,000, which is actually the most that could be awarded without the approval of the Florida legislator. And they say, this is another quote that says from the Herald Tribune, I don't think I was unreasonable. This is from Kenny. I took steps to get trained at the appropriate level. I could have performed it in a private practice, but I chose to do it for the kids who asked me if I would help them.
Oh, okay. So he did have that one statement.
Yes. So obviously the parents aren't happy, but they are hoping to move on and hoping that the school board takes better precautions. The principal actually today runs a small bed and breakfast close to the Smoky Mountains, which, nice. He's really sad, I guess, about not being able to work with students anymore. But, I mean, he has to understand, like, that is just going to follow him around forever. So, a little ripple here is just the pros of hypnosis. And I have a quote that says, hypnosis bypasses the conscious mind so that suggestions to a person's subconscious mind will be more, and I put quote, like absorbed. That was the best word I could kind of define that as.
Okay.
So just getting those suggestions sunk into your head. So that's kind of why hypnosis can be so powerful, is the subconscious mind is so much more powerful than the conscious mind. And I've heard forever that we only use like 14% of our brain power. So what is the rest of that brain doing all of this time?
Isn't it making all of the other things in your body work? Or did I just make that up?
You might have made that up, or I might just not know.
I don't know. That's kind of what I thought. Like all of the, like your heart beating and all of these other things. But maybe
there's
maybe that's completely different. I
There's
have no idea.
so much we don't understand about our brain. I mean, dreams, for example. Like when we're asleep, our brain is still making pictures.
Well,
so
mine is.
Well, okay, mine is just on a loop.
Just playing circus music.
That too. So this one person said that a hypnotist should practice within their own limitations and practice what they feel capable of. So if you're capable and confident in hypnotizing people to stop smoking, then that's what you should focus on. Maybe you shouldn't be trying to help people with like situational stress situations.
But how do you know? Because there's no, like, okay, when you're talking about medical science, there typically is like, okay, this virus is gone and this person no longer is, I don't even know why I'm trying to give medical examples, but you know, there's like a clear cut. This is the test that you're
specialist.
Giving. Right. You gave this medication and now there's clear evidence that medication worked. But when you're talking about hypnotizing somebody, how are you supposed to gauge whether or not you're really good at it and it's working well?
Maybe if you're just successful, but I guess the only way you can see if you're successful is if you try it on multiple people.
And if he was successful, who's to say he shouldn't do it? Other than the school board. I mean, that was pretty clear.
I don't know. Good questions. You get a gold star by your name.
Give me answers.
That I can't. So we all know that hypnosis can help with smoking and weight loss or gain. Some of them that I didn't know about, there was like a site that said like the top 15. One of them was dental phobia, which I thought was really interesting.
That makes sense though, because it's, I mean.
Oh, so that's a huge fear for people.
Yeah.
I don't have that fear.
I love the dentist.
I don't mind them. I don't.
I actually enjoy it. It's weird.
I wouldn't say enjoy, but I don't really mind.
Well, I'm not necessarily enjoy having my teeth scraped, but I love the way it feels afterwards.
Oh, sure.
Like, oh, it's so nice.
But you and I never had braces, so I wonder if that's part of it. I wonder if people that had braces hate it.
I mean, it can't be fun.
No, I wanted braces. So it can help with sleeping better. I said, stress situations, bereavement. So like, if you're like, if you've had a lot of loss, just helping cope with that. Mm-hmm. People with chemo, because you get so sick from chemo, it can help with
like
that.
Nausea?
Mm-hmm. Sports improvement, what it sounds like Kenny was trying to do with some of his students. And then I circled this one to help with IBS. And I was like, oh, sign me up, because my tummy's a hot mess.
How can you fix that? That's so weird.
I don't. Well, because maybe if it's stress related, which a lot of mine is.
Nervous
I don't know.
tips.
Nervous tummies. So there's hundreds of ways that hypnosis can bypass the conscious mind into the subconscious one. And the subconscious mind doesn't technically deduce. It just accepts everything it's being given as true. So when you're being hypnotized, your conscious mind kind of slips to the side and the subconscious mind comes to the front.
That's what's terrifying.
It is, but over and over and over I read, you cannot be hypnotized to do something that you are objecting to. So if you're morally objected to killing someone, you are not going to be able to be hypnotized.
Oh, I'll tell you more about that.
Okay, can't wait. And then this one hypnotist says, if I tell a 500-pound woman that she's thin and getting thinner every day, and I use what is so essential to hypnosis, and I keep repeating it, she begins to think thin, to eat thin, to become thin.
Interesting.
And
That's like that movie.
Yeah, that one.
It's Amy Schumer. I haven't watched it yet, and I totally forgot about it until you just read that line. It's Amy Schumer, and she like gets hit in the head or something, and she believes that she's just like this hot shit, and she starts acting like she's just like,
no.
Yeah, I need to watch it now.
Wait, what was that? Oh, remember Shallow Hal? Like back in the 90s?
Yeah, except that was the guy.
I don't know if I've ever seen that one either, but
it was entertaining.
That's what it sounds like.
He saw this chick as being like the hottest chick ever in his mind. He saw everybody based on their personality. So she had this amazing, wonderful personality, and he saw her as like physically just like gorgeous.
And she wasn't to the average person.
Or to him anyway, because he was super shallow. But there's this other Amy Schumer movie, and I cannot remember the name of it now, but I remember hearing about it and really wanting to see it.
Is it new?
Somewhat. I think it's like a couple years old.
Oh, okay.
Here, I'll look it up.
Okay.
You go ahead.
I will. This is my full-on ripple here. So this person says that I believe that the case isn't so much the principal hypnotized the kids into a suicide, but did it as part of some type of unofficial counseling therapy sessions he was neither qualified nor licensed to provide. So what he thinks is these kids were probably struggling somewhere else in their life, which, I mean, if that one little girl was so focused on school and maybe stressed out about getting good grades, and the football player was just working, and the other kid working to get into Juilliard, maybe they needed better coping mechanisms to deal with the stress of everyday life.
Yeah, I mean, any teenager would.
Every single one needs that, especially as college gets closer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your life right there.
You're supposed to decide your entire life when you're like 17 years old.
And your brain isn't even fully formed.
And last week you just cut your bangs 2 inches from your forehead. And
because Billy didn't ask you to the homecoming dance. Oh, I get it.
That movie's called I Feel Pretty, by the way.
Oh, okay. Good to know. So he says that the main problem is that the kids were already troubled and the principal tried to play therapist instead of referring the kids to qualified professionals.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. And he may have had like really good intentions.
Right.
And he may have really loved and cared about these kids, and he may have thought he was doing the right thing. But unfortunately, he should have maybe not tried to be the hero and instead directed them to someone that actually knew how to help them.
And that may have been a cry for help too. I mean, nobody knows, but there's a possibility that they were going to him like because they had stress and anxiety, but it wasn't necessarily about that game or the audition or the test. It could have been all kinds of things.
Just life, high school.
Yeah. It's really sad.
So this girl, Heidi Lee, she graduated from another school called Cascade Hypnosis Center's accredited NGH-approved Banyan Hypnosis Certification Training Program. That is a long title.
That's some really big words.
So she plans on doing hypnosis for her nonprofit that she started. It's called My Whole Presence. And her goal is to actually give stress relief and relaxation techniques to families that have been at children's hospitals. And she wants to make sure that the caregivers of these children are also being cared for. And she's currently working with the Ronald McDonald House to just, if you're at the Ronald McDonald House, you live there with your child while they're receiving treatment. So maybe while the child is with the doctors, the caregivers can then come and see Heidi, and she can, kind of hypnotize and just teach them relaxation techniques and ways to deal with probably the most stressful situation that they've ever been in. So I just thought that was something really cool that this lady is trying to do, and it's a nonprofit. Ronald McDonald House is another one that they don't charge the families to stay there. So she's working with them just to kind of add on to the services that they are giving the families. And I really liked that.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I like it. That was a good one.
So that was my very strange little hypnosis story.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think there should definitely be more research on how hypnosis affects the teenage brain.
Yeah, maybe it should be like lottery tickets or cigarettes. You can't be hypnotized till you're 18 or something.
I mean, you're doing all kinds of shit to somebody's brain and making them do things that they wouldn't otherwise do. That's got to be altering something somewhere.
It's something. It's
I don't know.
there's
That's
more
creepy.
to it than that.
It kind of freaks me out. I'm sure it helps a lot of people, but I would be terrified. I don't think I could ever I don't think I could ever like let myself
Be fully hypnotized.
Hypnotized.
I mean, it's probably something where you have to do it, or you are supposed to do it sober. And I think I would need a couple drinks to be able to
like,
do it.
Fully let go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I don't trust people.
All right, tell me a story.
Okay. Oh, by the way, so you didn't have your cocktail
I
today.
didn't, because today was my daughter's birthday party, and I was
Busy getting juice boxes and
getting
pizza and cake.
getting all of that, and I left my drink on the counter.
Oh,
But what do
bummer.
you have for me?
Okay, so I had a really, really great plan, but then I realized when I got home that I didn't have any vodka, so my great drink that I was going to make you isn't here today, so I had to improvise.
Okay, tell me about it.
I was going to make you a mind eraser.
Oh.
Ooh,
Okay, so can I
hypnosis,
tell you
mind-
what I was going to bring?
Tell me.
Was, remember that drink from, I don't know, the early 2000s maybe?
Hypnotic.
Yes!
I didn't think they made it anymore.
I don't think they did.
You
I
just
looked.
have a random bottle at your house?
Well, no, I was going to bring a blue drink.
Oh,
Like to
okay.
pretend it was
What
him.
was hypnotic?
I don't know.
Like a flavored vodka or something? And they spelled it weird too.
But then they also brought in another one, like a pink one.
Oh.
Do you
I don't know.
remember?
No, I remember the blue one. And that was like the thing. All of these like fancy blue bottles, like blue glass was like a trendy thing for a bit. But I think it was like a sweet vodka.
I don't even remember.
Drink. And
Yeah.
they spell it with like a Q.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
keep
so I was
going.
going to make you a mind racer, which is coffee liqueur, like Kahlua, and vodka. And then you top it with soda water and squeeze a lime in it, which sounds freaking disgusting. And I know I've had it before as a shot, but I think when I had it, I was already drunk, so I don't remember it tasting like anything. But it sounds awful. So instead, I did buy the soda water with lime, but I didn't have vodka at my house, so I brought you gin. So it's a gin fizz? Is that what
Sure.
a gin is? No, I feel
No,
like a
gin fizz
is
has something else in
fancier.
it. Yeah.
I don't know. It's gin and sparkling water.
All right.
All right. Should I start my story?
Go for it.
Okay. First sources: Psychology Today and SciShow. Which, have you ever watched SciShow?
Never.
It's a YouTube channel where they like explain sciencey things in more layman's terms, and
I
it's
probably
pretty
should
interesting.
watch something like that.
yeah, it's good stuff. And then later on, I have some quotes, but I'll tell you where they're from.
Okay.
All right. So in 1927, Miss E. So they don't use her real name in this. She goes by Miss E. She was 17 years old from rural Germany, and she took a train into town when she found herself sharing a compartment with a man who called himself Dr. Bergen. I think that's how you say it.
Okay.
Or Bergen. Bergen. Let's go with Bergen. That sounds better. Anyway, she found herself talking to him, felt kind of comfortable, and when the train stopped 40 minutes later, he invited her to have a cup of coffee with her. And she was like, sure, why not? So they're chatting over coffee, and he took her hand and then stared deeply into her eyes. And that's when I would be so far gone.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
nope,
weird.
I'm
No,
out.
that's weird.
Don't touch me, stranger. Anyway, from that moment forward, Miss E was completely under his hypnotic spell.
What?
Yeah. For the next 7 years.
What?
Uh-huh. So
From this one little coffee date?
Well, I think it's like when he took her hand and like stared. That was like now I have you.
Okay.
Somehow. Yeah, it's weird. So during the next 7 years, Dr. Bergen suggested physical ailments to her, and then he would cure her after she paid for his treatment. So he was just like using her for cash.
To be
And
her
then-
fake doctor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting that you say fake doctor, because later we find out that he was not in fact a real doctor.
Oh, well.
But she didn't know that initially,
Uh-huh.
or for the next 7 years. So then he began to manipulate her into doing other things, of course, sexual relations and favors for him and his friends.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, 3 years into the hypnosis, 3 years. God, that's crazy. Anyway, Miss E met and fell in love with the love of her life and got married. Shortly after the young couple were wed, Mr. E started to grow suspicious of the amount of money that now Mrs. E was spending on her so-called treatments. So he paid a visit to Dr. Bergen and just to kind of check things out, and then he tried to put Mr. E, Dr. Bergen, tried to put Mr. E under his spell as well, but he wasn't successful.
Okay, good.
So knowing that something was up, Mr. E went to the police. But, like, what are you going to say? Like, my wife keeps going to this guy, and he's taking advantage of her and getting all of this money, and...
They'll be like, that's between you and your wife.
Exactly. So, but of course, he's super concerned, and now Dr. Bergen was high on alert. Like, this guy's on to me. You know, police are involved now. We need to figure something out. So, what does he do? He uses his hypno slave, Mrs. E, to get rid of the problem.
Of the husband?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So first, he's like, okay, I am going to have you go home and poison your husband. But luckily, after she tried to poison him, he got, like, really sick, but he didn't die. So strike one, they go to the next option, and the doctor has her cut the brakes on his motorcycle.
Whoa.
Yeah, freaking crazy. And he gets in a wreck, but again, he survives.
And he has no clue that wifey is trying to do all this to him.
Not yet.
Okay.
But then on try 3, he figures it out because the doctor then suggests she takes a gun and shoots him in the head. Like, we're not messing around this time. Luckily, there's no bullets in the gun. But can you imagine, like, your spouse is like, you figure out, holy shit, this is the 3rd time she's tried to kill me? And you're still like, no, it's okay. It's not really her. It's her under the spell. It's so freaking weird. I'd be out.
Mm-hmm.
Incidentally, Mrs. E also tries several attempts to take her own life, but they were unsuccessful thanks to the support of Mr. E.
He sounds like a really nice guy.
Like, too nice. Finally, Mr. E convinces the police to investigate the case. So I think after attempted murder, that's when they're like, okay, I guess we can do something about that. So they have Mrs. E see a second hypnotist through the police, which is, like, really, you know, kind of taken a step forward back in the 1920s to suggest something like that. That seems like not your average police work. And over the period of 18 months, that hypnotherapist is able to recover her memories of being put under the control of Dr. Bergen. She's then able to tell the police how she lost her will at the touch of Dr. Bergen's hand and all of the crimes that he had her commit under his orders.
Wow.
Yeah, freaking crazy. So the case goes to trial, and they find that Dr. Bergen was not a doctor at all, and his name was actually Mr. Walker, so he didn't even use a real name, which, I mean, I understand. I wouldn't either if I were trying to manipulate somebody in this way. And he's sentenced to 12 years of hard labor for attempted murder.
Was he hypnotizing other people or just this one lady?
If he was, it wasn't going this far.
Okay.
Or it wasn't being brought to the police's attention. And maybe he was doing that and they didn't even realize it because she didn't realize what was going on. Not until her husband got involved.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then that's the end of my story. I mean, it's really quick, short, simple one. It's freaking crazy. But the rest of my article here is just about, like, how all of this works and how so many people believe that you can't be hypnotized to do things that you wouldn't normally otherwise do. And this is what Psychology Today has to say about that. And this is kind of the general consensus of people who work in that field. Okay. And this is a direct quote. A person cannot be hypnotized against his or her will, nor can she or he be made to do things that he or she doesn't want to do. If anyone suggests something that goes against your values, moral belief system, or is any way dangerous to yourself or anyone else, it's rejected immediately. So then, there are some people who believe that you could argue, while you can't hypnotize somebody to do something against his or her core belief system, you may be able to change those beliefs and influence the subject's actions because you're changing their belief system.
So you're hypnotizing them to change their belief system, and then you can change them to, or convince them to do things they wouldn't have done normally.
So it's like, normally I wouldn't kill somebody, but this hypnotist is making me believe that if I don't kill this person, my entire family is going to be killed. Or if I don't kill this person, the world's going to come to an end.
So I have to, for the greater good.
Exactly.
Whoa.
Yeah. All right. And then they go on to say that hypnotism isn't necessarily dangerous, but a hypnotist can be. And, of course, our legal system reflects these views. So if you were to use this as a defense today, you would most likely not successfully get out of a murder charge. And instead, your hypnotist would be considered an accessory to the crime. But you're not going to get off the hook. Excuse me. And that being said, some hypnotists believe that depending on how skilled you are, which is kind of what you were saying earlier, you could certainly make somebody kill another person. And this is often debated in reference to the Robert F. Kennedy assassination. So
interesting.
Yeah. So the Sirhan thing where they used appeals to try to get the sentence reduced or removed because he was apparently brainwashed and hypnotized and was doing something that he normally wouldn't do. And then I found a TED Talk, which I thought was super, super cool. And this kind of puts that debate to rest. And if you want to look this up, it's called Guilty of Hypnotic Murder. So if you just type that into YouTube,
it'll show up.
Yeah, super, super interesting. So this hypnotist from Denmark set out to prove that you could not, in fact, convince somebody or hypnotize somebody to murder another person because their moral code would stop them and prevent them from doing that. So he has this TV show where he brings people on stage and he hypnotizes them and kind of demonstrates the abilities to do something like that. And he had this idea that he was going to do that, and he brought somebody onto the show, and they went to, I think, a gun range, and he hypnotized his volunteer to become a better marksman. So he first goes out and he shoots and he's like terrible at it, and then he gives him like this focus exercise, and it's like, you can do this, you have the power to do this, you're going to be the greatest marksman. And you go out there and you have this confidence and focus, and he goes and shoots again, and he's like way better.
Okay.
So then it's like, okay, great, yay, end of the show, congratulations. And then he tells the volunteer like he needs to go to this press conference. Show's over. At least the volunteer thinks the show is over. So he goes to this press conference that's taking place at a art gallery. And what the volunteer doesn't know is that everybody in that art gallery are actors. So he pulls the volunteer aside after being there for a little while and mixing and mingling with the people. And he says, okay, you have the power. You can do this. I need you to rob the owner of the art gallery.
What?
Because he has the money and nothing is going to stop you from doing this. And he hands him a gun, which the volunteer doesn't know is a fake gun, and lets him go. And he goes back into the art gallery. He points the gun at the owner of the gallery, and he says, I know you have the money, give me the money. And the actor / gallery owner calls for security, and the security actors run in and try to, take him out. And the volunteer, under this trance, shoots the security not just once, but 3 times.
Oh my gosh, this poor man.
Yeah. And of course, like, the hypnotist is blown away because it was just an experiment for him, and he didn't know whether or not it would happen. And he kind of set out to demonstrate that it wouldn't happen, and it did. So it's amazing to think that you can have that much control and manipulation.
I want to watch this.
Yeah, well, it's not in English, but
all right.
You can watch the TED Talk though, and he describes it way better than I did. Yeah, it's remarkable that you can convince somebody to do something so fucking crazy. And then, thinking this wouldn't actually work, he's like overwhelmed with this amount of guilt because,
of course,
that person has now
almost killed. Well, not almost, but like tried to kill somebody.
And I would imagine that would come with some sort of trauma.
100%.
So, Yeah, it was really, really fascinating. And then another similar experiment was conducted on the American version of a show like that. And the hypnotist slash mentalist. What is a mentalist? Is that just the same thing as a hypnotist?
I have no idea.
Oh, well, that's what he is. His name is Tom Silver, and he did something similar to that. But the difference is in their version, the American version, the entire thing is on the show, and the volunteer knows that he's still on the show. So you never know. Like, he could be
faking
or not realizing that he's just going along with it. I don't know. That one, to me, is a little bit more questionable. But I did watch that one, and you can tell, like, at the end, once he's told what he had done under hypnosis, that he is, like, visibly shaken, like, holy
wow
shit. And then, of course, they immediately have, like, a counselor come in and talk to him.
Oh,
like,
my gosh.
It was all fake. He wasn't hurt.
But
and
still.
he says, can I see him? Can I see that he's not hurt?
Oh, my God.
And then, of course, he's worried that, like, okay, he was manipulated to do that at one time. What's going to happen later on in his life? Yeah.
Oh, that's traumatic in itself.
So it's crazy. The human brain is weird and easily manipulated. But if you think about it, we're manipulated every single day. There's different forms of...
Oh, they say advertising is a form of hypnosis.
Yeah. And even if you're not directly focused and listening to the ad, it's still in your freaking brain and it pops up later.
Well,
and you're like, I didn't know I needed... Very Berry Cheerios, but here I am buying Very Berry Cheerios.
But I mean, think of how many like commercial jingles you can remember.
Head on,
from...
apply directly to the forehead. Head on, apply directly to the forehead. Head on, apply directly to the forehead.
That one's your favorite.
Oh my gosh. And that's been like over 10 years since that, I think, that advertisement has even played. And
I remember some from like when I was, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah.
Like some of the little like
jingles and stuff.
Yeah,
That's what they're made to do.
They just get in your head, and I mean that's I think a form of hypnosis, right?
I don't know. Yeah, we came away knowing a whole lot.
Well, we have a little bit more knowledge, maybe more than we started with.
Well, now I believe it because I really didn't before, but there was so many stories to pick from.
Yeah.
There was a ton, and we could definitely do this topic again because there's a lot of crazy stuff. The one thing that's been in the news fairly recently is that attorney who hypnotized. He was a divorce attorney, and he had women coming in and obviously in a vulnerable state because they're going through a divorce, and he would give them these relaxation techniques. Did you hear about that one?
No.
And he would just like grope them once they were put under, and they didn't realize what was going on at first until like one chick like got back in her car and she's like, whoa, my bra's on weird.
No.
Yeah. And then she goes to the police. I'll just do the story now. The police are like, well, I guess you need a new attorney because like I mean we don't know, you don't know. And then she decides to take matters into her own hands and she puts a camera on her purse and goes back to the guy. But also scary because you're going into this knowing that this guy is gonna molest you.
So you're putting yourself in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're doing it to save some other people,
I guess so, for a greater good.
Whew. Okay.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I have a little ripple.
Tell me.
And it's not that was kind of my ripple, that hypnotists have studied this and figured out. I mean, that you can potentially convince somebody to murder somebody else. But just be a good person because every day you're influencing everybody around you. You're your own hypnotist.
Hey, like, do you want people to be fountains and not drains?
Yes.
Like, is that what you're trying to say?
That's what I'm trying to say. Be a fountain, not a drain. Be nice to people, because then they're nice to the next person, maybe.
Just go watch
maybe
Mr. Rogers.
Maybe they're a little happier.
The end.
Yeah.
All right. Whoa, want to pick our theme for next week?
Yeah. I don't even remember what these themes are anymore. It's been a long time. Is it my turn to pick or your turn?
I don't even remember what we talked about last time we met. Like, we need to get back on our calendar schedule again. So.
Well, we have microphones now.
Woohoo! Did I blast out the speakers with that?
I don't know how they work. Oh, crimes that changed laws.
Oh,
you can go a million
that's a good
different
one.
directions.
That's a very good one.
Yeah.
Crimes that changed laws. It's going to be a heavy crime.
Yeah,
But-
probably.
All right.
Okay.
Until next week.
Be a
Don't
fountain.
forget to
Be a fountain.
not a drain.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.